we're a digital marketing agency focusing on fitness, gyms, fitness franchises, pretty much everything within the fitness space. So we have clients that are martial arts, MMA, yoga studios, group fitness, a lot of fitness franchises as well. Probably like franchises are probably like 70% of the business. Um, Platforms that we run advertising on: Facebook, Instagram, Google. And we also have a call center that works all the leads for our clients. So that's a team probably of somewhere between 15 to 20. They reach out via text, phone call to work to get people scheduled. Yeah, that's pretty much the gambit of it, man. Business has definitely evolved over the years. Like, when we first started, we actually did. I was probably one of the first people probably using Go High Level. I was a student of Rob Bailey, who's like one of the top affiliates for Go High Level. And if you know, it's like High Level was launched out of one of his masterminds. And I was like I wasn't at that mastermind, but I probably joined his program right after that. And it was the perfect fit because I know when I started, I knew I wanted to start an agency, and I can go into how and why I started what I started. But the first thing I knew was like, I got to be different. And like everybody's doing Facebook ads. Mind you, this is 5 years ago. So it's like 2019. Like everybody's doing Facebook ads. Like, how do I do something different than everybody else over here? And once I found out about High Level, I'm like, oh, I can follow up with my clients' leads for them. I'm like, that's going to be a big difference maker. So that was like the first thing that I did. And crazy enough, it's like the first 10 clients, I worked all of the leads myself, which was freaking nuts because I was covering all these different time zones. I was doing lead nurturing from like 4 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night. So much so that like my wife wouldn't let me drive because if I saw a lead come in, I'd jump on my phone and start texting while driving. Not a safe thing to do. She's like, you're not driving anymore until we figure out a solution to this. So, once I finally got around to like 10 grand a month, I was like, oh, I could hire some VAs. Which the funny thing was, at the time I'd never hired a VA, and all I knew of was like virtual assistant agencies. And VA agencies, the only one I knew of at the time, charged like $1,500 a month. And I was like, damn, that's a lot of money when you're only making 10 grand and it's not 100. It wasn't 100% profit. You had some fees. I was probably at that time, because it was just me, 8,500 or so in profit at that time. So I was like, damn, I'm like, to give away 1,500 to a VA right now, I'm like, that's a big chunk. Then I realized I could actually go find them myself and train them myself. So like my first VA was like $500 or like $600 a month. And once I realized that, I was not too long after, I was able to get like 2 or 3 VAs to kind of help me cover all the hours. But my first one, I was like, all right, you're working 9 to 5, so I can focus on the business during these hours. When it's not 9 to 5, I'll take care of the rest. Then got the second one, then got the third one. So it took me 3 VAs to actually like fully cover all the hours. But, to where we are now, top line is somewhere like around like 180, 190-ish. It's fluctuated with it. The closest we've probably gotten like less than $1,000 from 200 before.
Wow.
But yeah, it's kind of the range that we've been in for a good while now. Not a good while now, but that's kind of where we're fluctuating. But the next barrier to break that 200 and stay above that.
Come on, man. That's crushing it. Love it. And then your team is like, you said you had like 30 or 40 or something like that?
Yeah, I think we're around like 40-ish. The team comprises, to the best of my ability of knowing this, 2 salespeople, 1 appointment setter. We have 6 CSMs. One of them is the director of client success. We have 1 senior media buyer, 4 junior media buyers, hiring a 5th. Call ops, we have like 3 ops team members. And then call center is around like 15 to 20. I think that's everybody. And then we have a director of marketing as well.
Easy to manage.
Yeah. And we also actually have an outsourced design team. That's pretty cool because they're like, I say outsourced design team. It's a VA agency. And that comprises of, I think it's like 1 video editor, 2 graphic designers, 1 project manager, and they help us like with all of our design work. Pretty cool because they just work in our Asana. So like they're just there, like we put different projects and they kind of work as our team, but we don't have to like really manage them that much or anything like that. They just, after enough time, they've kind of figured out how we work. Our director of marketing, who's really good at design, has kind of like managed them pretty well. So, but our own in-house team members, it's close to like 40-ish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. So that's where you're at now. You've been doing this 5-6 years, something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Okay.
think we were March 2019. So we're probably like,
Mm.
what was that, 5 years, 5 months, something like that, 5.5 years.
So this nice little journey, I'm sure, was a smooth ride to the top, no challenges whatsoever. But yeah, walk me through a little bit. What were some of the challenges? What were some of the iterations you've been going through? Yeah, I think you mentioned you heard about high level through Rob, got
Mhm.
up to 10K, hired some VAs. What was kind of that next phase there for you?
Well, actually, you cool if I just kind of give the origin story of how things
Yeah.
probably got
Yeah,
started,
hell yeah.
right?
Give us the
So
origin.
the origin story, prior to this, I had probably spent like 8 years in e-commerce. My buddies had an e-commerce business that they started in my apartment that grew. Peak year probably was like an 8-figure e-com business, and I kind of like managed everything.
Mm.
Doing it long enough, like learned a lot of like good lessons in business, saw a lot of ups and downs. We were in the supplement space, so saw them have to deal with the FDA and crap like that. So I saw Google penalties that we got, SEO penalties, saw the business go up and down and stuff like that. So definitely learned that business wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
But eventually got to the point where I was like, I know I want to start my own thing. And I remember the person that I came across was Sam Ovens. So I joined his program, Consulting Accelerator. And I think one of the biggest lessons in all of that when I did that program was just being fully bought into what you're actually doing. I
Mm.
say that in that Sam Ovens, I'd done other courses and had kind of like dabbled with things and never like, I did like copywriting courses and all these things, but never really went like fully all in. And when I came across Sam Ovens' program, I actually got a bootleg version of it first, like from like a torrent website.
I've heard so many people have a similar story, dude. So many people are traced back to Sam and then the bootleg version as well.
Yeah.
So
So
funny.
here's the funny thing, though, right? So I got Sam's bootleg version, and I went through like his program was like a 6-week program, and if you remember Sam's program, I would say it was, dare you say, groundbreaking. It was definitely different than any other course out there. I feel like it was one of the first ever like group coaching programs. But when I went through the content, if you remember it, as like his content was like every lesson was like an hour to 2 hours long.
Mm.
And it was like super in depth and really good. And the first one was like all about the first week was like so much about like mindset stuff. And I did the first week of content. I was like, this shit is so good that I'm going to really buy into doing this. So I went and actually paid for the course because I knew that if I paid for it, I would be so much more bought into what I'm actually doing.
Good move.
And I was also at a point where I said that I think a few months before that, I'm 38 now. So when I was going through it, I was like 31 or something. And I had kind of had the point in my life where I was like, yo, if I'm going to do this, like, if I want to do this, create a business thing, I'm like, it's got to happen right now. And I have to get serious about this stuff. Um, so that's why I was like, I'm going to make this happen. Like, I'm like all in right now. So I'm like, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to do everything he freaking says to do and do it 100%, like setting up your LLC, like everything he said to do. I'm like, set that up before. Most people say like, don't worry about that stuff until later. I'm like, whatever he tells me to do, I'm going to do it. So I'm like, set up the LLC. I'm going to go do that. He's like, don't worry about setting up a website now. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Go get your first 10 clients. And one of the key things he also says, he's like, his program really helps you figure out what you want to do more than anything else. Right. So that helped me. And I thought one of the coolest things is like people are always like, well, do what you like. And like, oh, how do you know what you actually like? What are your interests? And I like that the things that he said to do, he's like, go look at your YouTube search history, go look at your Google search history. It's going to tell you what your interests are. And I'm like, oh, look, my interests are all fitness and marketing. That's all I ever look up. So
Nice.
the intersection of that was working with gyms. And then the next thing he's like, once you figure out what you want to go do, find who does it best and either go learn from them or just try to copy them. And at that time, the person that I thought I liked the best was Rob Bailey's agency, which was called the Fit Club Accelerator.
Mm.
And so I looked at everything that I possibly could do with them. And then I followed Rob on Facebook. And then I saw on Rob's Facebook, it said former owner of the Fit Club Accelerator. I'm like, oh, what the hell is going on here? He no longer has it. And somehow through the little rabbit hole, I found his Facebook group and saw that he was now teaching agency owner. So like immediately booked a call with him to chat. And I remember speaking to him about it. And I remember jumping on a call with him and he told me the price. It was like $6,000. And he told me all the things that were interested. His urgency was simply like, hey, if you sign up now, like instead of getting 6 months of support, you'll get a year of support. And I was like, so you're telling me that if I jump on calls with your team, they'll tell me everything that I have to do and help me through everything? He's like, yep. I'm like, I'm in. And I was like, can you do some payments on this? And I remember I did the first $2,000. I did the first $2,000 like on a personal credit card. And then right after I set up the business, I was able to get a business credit card. And I was like, oh shoot, I get a year with like 0% interest. I'm like, I'm in. I'm going to jump into all this. Like, I know I'm going to be able to do it. And I remember talking to Rob. He was like, so what's your goal? And I think I signed up somewhere like in April or May of that year. And I'm like, my goal is to hit like, I want to get to 10 grand a month. Everybody's like first goal, and he was telling me, so so you're telling me, I'm like, if I do this and I follow everything that your team says, because I told him like my goal is to kind of be there in like 6 months. He's like, so if I do this and I follow everything your team says, like in 6 months, I can be at 10 grand a month. And he's like, yep. And I'm like, all right, sign me up, and I think in almost like 6 months time, I was like right there. I was maybe at like 8,000 or 9,000 a month. And then like the perfect opportunity kind of came across from there, because my plan was, it was like November of that year. I was somewhere around like 8, 9-ish grand, somewhere fluctuating around there. And so I was thinking in my head, because my job at the time, I was making like 6 grand or so a month. So I was like, all right, agency's making close to that amount or just around that amount. Like, I think I'm ready to make that switch and kind of go all into this. So my plan was like, all right, January, I'm going to dive into this. And funny enough, I think it was maybe just shortly after November, Rob reached out to me and he's like, hey man, I'm like, do you want to be a success coach? And I was like, what does that mean? What do I have to do?
Yeah.
He's like, just do more of what you're doing. Because I was just super active, like in his Facebook group. I was either asking questions or I was responding to people, like giving them my feedback. I was just helping other people out. He's like, just do more of what you're doing. And I was like, no shit. I'm like, all right. And he worked out a deal with me. He's like, what do you want for it? And I basically worked out a deal with Rob to like get paid like 6 grand a month, basically replacing that income just to be a coach in that program. So it was like the perfect transition. I had like 6 weeks. I told him like, hey, I'll start part-time. And by the end of January, I'll go full-time with it. So I can give my friends, I wanted to give my friends like 2 months to transition me out of the business. And so, yeah, I did that for like a good year, which was great because it only required like 20 hours of my time a week to do that. Like, I had like a coaching call. I had like one live coaching call I had to do. And then everything else was just kind of like helping out in the Facebook group, responding to emails and stuff like that, helping out people as much as I possibly could. And it was only like a 20-hour commitment, but now I had a flexible schedule so I could working with my clients and everything like that. And yeah, that went well for like a year. And I remember after about a year, Rob had to change. He was changing his offer because what he was doing with the agency, or what he was doing with his agency coaching, like everybody was kind of copying it. So he was like, I got to change the offer because like his sales were starting to slow down for bringing people into it. I think his program was called like Nurture and Close, which he's crushing it again. He was just like, he's like, it's fine. He's like, I got to just retool things. I got to change it. He's like, it always happens. An offer will burn out and I got to change it. But he was like slowing down. He was trying to tell me, he's like, look, I might want to put you on pause for a little bit. And I told him at that time, funny enough, he's like, where are you at with the agency? And I was like, oh, like the agency right now is doing like 40 grand a month. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing working for me still?
Yeah. He's right. Rightfully
he's like,
so.
He's like, why are you still working for me when you have that happening? And I was like, well, I'm not touching any of the money that's coming in from the agency. I'm just living off of what you're giving me here. And he's like, dude, just go all in. He's like, trust me, you'll thank me later. And I'm like, all right. And like, I went all in, and I think like within a few months, like we probably got to like 60 or 70. And that was like January of that year. By the end of that year, like, so take it a year later from when I did that, I think we had broken like 6 figures a month. We maybe like 100, 110. So it was definitely a good decision. But yeah, I did all that starting the agency, did that all with a full-time job, working a 9 to 5, built that up, like just worked through, it's hard to make the transition from working a job to really starting a business. You got to just find every nook and cranny of the day that you can do it. I remember I would work before the workday began. I would work after the workday began. I would take sales calls any opportunity that I could. I remember I was taking sales calls on my lunch break. I remember doing sales calls like in my car, like over the phone, like in my car with my sales script. Like while the car is like, I had my
That's
car parked and I
commitment,
was like
boy.
doing
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
But that heck, paid off, man. got
Damn
me
right,
got me
dude.
going to where I am now, and don't know any other way. It's funny though, because like you realize that initial 0 to 10K, it's it definitely is part tactical, but it's 90% mental. You know, 90% getting through all of your own BS, your own limiting beliefs, and all that kind of stuff.
So that was the hardest part, you would say, is like just getting that first 10K, just working through the beliefs and a
Yeah,
lot of that stuff.
I would definitely say the hardest part is that initial stage of getting through your own limiting beliefs, getting out of your own way. Um, getting through your belief that you can actually do this, that you can figure out this stuff. Because once you get it figured, like once you can get past that, it's like, dude, you know that you can go start something and get back to 10K like really
Yeah.
really quick. You know, um, but just being 100% committed to figuring it out, dude. I remember we would have the coaching calls, and it's like I would have I remember the first client that I had to like launch ads for. Which the cool thing was is like when I learned his program, one of the first things you learn is database reactivation, which he still pushes to this day, and
Yep.
it's the easiest way to get somebody results. So like you don't have to figure out how to do ads yet. It's like, yo, give me a database and I can go get you some appointments. And I remember like I did that with a couple clients, and then I did free trials, and then the first one like stuck. They're like, all right, let's do ads. I'm like, shit, gotta figure out how to do ads. And I still remember that I would jump on the ads coaching call, and I would jump on there with like a 15-minute break that I had at work. And I remember like Betsy was the coach in there, and I would message her. I'm like, Betsy, can I go first? I only got 15 minutes. Like, and I'm like, here's my question. I'm like, could you help me with this about like how to set up the ads, do this? Am I making sure I'm doing this correctly? And she would walk me through it. I remember like I'd hop on the next coaching call, and I was like, Betsy, all right, I'm getting like $2 leads. Like, what should I do next? She's like, nothing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, $2 lead. Keep it going.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, that was I think part of it's like the mental, like definitely the huge part's the mental. But if you think about what I just said there, it's like even a year in at being at 40 grand a month, it's like I almost still hadn't fully bought into myself. Like I still had that safety net, I was like, oh, I'm still money over here. And it's like, dude, pull out the safety net and just go fucking all in. And that's like, definitely had to thank him for that, like pushing me to do it. Now it's like been all in ever since. And I don't doubt my own belief. It's like you can have ups and downs, and I guess one of the benefits of like having an agency or anything like that is that, hey, you don't have a brick and mortar where you're stuck with 15 grand a month in rent and certain hard costs and stuff like that. Like you can scale up and scale down if you need to. Fortunately, we really haven't had to do that, but it's like, hey, if you hit a rough patch, it's on you. Like the business doesn't die. It's your choice whether or not you want to give up or not, So it's like, if you hit a rough patch, like you make the necessary adjustments that you have to make to keep going.
Yeah, it's huge. So the all-in factor was really what was the catapult. It sounded like you were kind of chilling at the 40K for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Rob's push. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting if you're like holding on to the safety net. I mean, I've experienced that a lot as well, but it's just crazy how powerful that is to be able to just like let go. Was that pretty hard for you to like, damn, I don't know. Did you hold on for a while, or whenever Rob said that, you're just like, F it, let's go?
When he said it, I remember we probably talked like for a good 2 hours that day when he had that conversation with me about it. And I think he definitely gave me some reassurance. He's like, look, dude, he's like, if I were you, he's like, we're going to do good things over here regardless. And he's like, you always have a place here if you want to ever come back. He's like, but you got to go all in. He's like, and trust me, it'll be like the best thing you've ever done for your business.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, the guy got me this far.
Yeah.
I should probably follow I should continue to follow his advice and just go all in on this.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, so you went from 40, and then within a few months, you already hit that next phase, which was like around 100.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a few months. I think it probably took me like 3 or 4 months. Like we got to like 60 or 70. And then, by the end of the year, ish. We were knocking on like 100. And I think, one of the benefits that we had was, we were working within a franchise. Like, so I had a lot of clients within a franchise. So the benefit is
Mhm.
like, if you do a good job, all these people like talk to each other and your name gets like passed around. So we had the benefit of not having to, I had the benefit of not having to like go into paid ads. I didn't have to go prospect like crazy or anything like that. I mean, heck, I was
Okay.
so fortunate. I was so fortunate. Number one, during those first like 2 to 3 years, our retention was something like 99% or something
Damn.
like that. We just
That's
like
unheard
kept
of.
like, yeah, we just like kept everybody. And but I think two of the key things were, I think I did a really good. I obsessed over ads. I think, my superpower, I guess you'd say, or the place that I enjoy focusing the most. Love hate relationship is working on ads. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's because I think I'm just a problem solver. Like I enjoy the one thing I enjoy. I'm like, do I really enjoy ads? Maybe to a certain extent, but I enjoy getting results.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy figuring out something and seeing a really good result come out of it and get like good praise for it. So I think we were really good with ads. I definitely tried to innovate as much as I possibly could, but then having the lead follow up piece, which I think more people do that now, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is that I don't think a lot people still do it now, but I don't think a lot of people do it well. One of my
Even
friends
with
said
high
it really
level, yeah.
yeah, I think one of my friends said it well. Who had he sold his agency about a year ago. He's like, running a call center, it's really like running another business,
Mm.
and he's like, a lot of agencies don't treat it like it's its own separate business. What does he mean by that? It's like having, you don't just get a bunch of VAs to just do the call center. Like, you should have like somebody managing it, somebody almost like a sales team, coaching them, training them, reviewing calls, like doing like all of that kind of stuff. Is like, that's what's really necessary to make it good. Because I think a lot of people say, I'm like, oh yeah, we'll follow up with your leads. And it's like, it's kind of done like a shoddy job, you know? So I think, that like I said, the first 10 clients, I did it all myself. And when I first hired my first ever person, and I said like he would work 9 to 5 doing the call center stuff, I was like, dude, more so it was just texting. I'm like, here's what we're going to do. You are going to spend all day on Zoom with me, right? And your Zoom screen, I want you to share your high level. So that way you can just ping me anytime that's going on. It's like, hey, what do I say here? I can just, on my Mac, swipe over to his screen and say, I'm like, say this, do this, right? And so for the first 10, for the first 10 clients, like I had done every single thing myself. So I knew exactly how to handle every single situation, like very, very quickly and well. So he knew exactly how to go do everything. And so I think that was like one of the key things there. And one of the key things is like, I remember like one of my clients' testimonials, I asked her, I was like, so before working with us, out of your leads, like how many people like would really walk in the door? And she was like 10 to 15%. And I'm like, how many people are walking through the door now with us? She's like, 50-60% of people are actually walking in. So people just got such insane results compared to what they were getting before that they couldn't help but say it. It's like people asking us like, Will, what are you doing? Because especially with a franchise, like people's numbers are pretty public. Like they usually can go see in a dashboard. They can see how many members somebody's gym has or something like that. So they're like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you're growing really well. It's like, I'm working with these guys. And that's what was like pretty awesome. It's like most people weren't even saying like, oh, we're doing better with sales. They're just like, Pancham. That's all. They would just like point towards us. So much so that we had more than one time where I had a wait list for clients. Like we couldn't take on anybody more. Like I wish I still had those days where we had a wait list. I was like, all right, time to open up the wait list. And, I remember at one point we had like 20, 30 people on a wait list. So it's like, all right, you ready to scale? It's like hire a few more people and then open up the wait list.
What a great problem. What a great problem to have. Can't take you on right now.
Yeah.
Put you on the wait list.
And that built more hype up. Yeah, that built more hype up because people would tell me, I know it went around in their group. They're like, yeah, I reached out to him and he said like they have a wait list. It's like, that built more hype for people to want to come work with us.
Yeah. So did you always offer the call center? Is that a part of your offer from day one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from day one, that was always something we did from day one. I mean, in fact, for those first 3 years, like I would not sell anybody without it because my concern was because I knew how much better of results that it got that I did not want to risk letting somebody come in, get leads, and then not get results because they couldn't follow up with people effective enough. Especially at that time, it's like these people that like they didn't know about high level. They didn't know how to work it well. There were other, like with franchises, they usually have like a CRM that's kind of similar to like a high level now. Like there's a lot of different solutions out there that are like specific to gyms or specific to a certain niche. But I feel like a lot of those solutions have come out in the last like few years, I think a lot of those solutions have come out in the last few years, but still they usually don't have the manpower to do it effectively. They're like, oh yeah, my text automation. It's like, who's responding to the text automation though? Who's responding after the lead response? Somebody a few hours later, a day later, or something like that.
Mm.
So that was
huge. From day one, you had the call center. I feel like that's, kind of what separates you from a lot of agency owners is like, you're willing to do the hard stuff to get them results. Like where most people are just like, oh man, just focused on sales and let me just create an offer. And they're not really very product focused. Would you say that's kind of like been one of your main success factors?
Yeah. I mean, it's an obsession with product, like obsession with trying to make the product as good as it possibly can be. Now that we get clients from paid ads, like, with paid ads, you're going to get a mixed bag of clients. People that are in not the best situation or they don't have a good product and stuff like that. But even with that, like, our retention is still like around like 95%. So still like still really solid like this day and age.
Holy shit.
And I'm always
95% still at this with we're doing about 180K a month. You're still at about 95%. Dang. Yeah. That's huge, bro. That's amazing. Product obsession. Focus. I guess it pays off being obsessed with your product, your service.
Yeah, I can't stand somebody not getting good results. I heard for years and years like so many agencies are churn and burn. I remember the early days where High Level talked about the stats. Like I think it was before, or maybe when High Level was making the transition to push everybody to go to SaaS mode.
Oh right.
That was purely because like dude, none of these agencies can keep people. I think their data was like the average agency was retaining a client for like 1.5 months. And I'm like, if it's like if High Level's clients can't keep people, then good luck trying to keep the people on your platform if they can't keep clients.
Yeah.
So hence why they switched to teaching everybody how to do SaaS, because now people will actually stay with their product. And
that's
now
so
look
funny.
at them. What is High Level? Probably $1 billion company now.
Yeah. Right.
Up there. Crazy.
So other keys to retention, like, so you have your call center.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else has been able to, like, what else have you done to implement to like really ensure the results are there? Because it's hard to run local ads, right? I mean, you get a high cost per lead. They're not following up with their people, but you guys handle that, right? But even though you have someone that follows up, still, it's like you get the challenge of just still people don't respond, right? So I'm curious what that looks like.
So outside of the results, one thing is that's very, very huge is communication, right? Like, so making sure that you have a good client success manager. The big thing that we always harp on, it's like our communication needs to be proactive, not reactive, right? So that's why we call them client success managers and not account managers. Because I think an account manager is like, here's your numbers, like reporting the data. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, our team is going to be proactive. Like, it should never be you reaching out saying like, hey, what's happening? My results are slow. I'm like, it should always be our team reaching out and saying like, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what we need to go do next. We need to change our offer. We need to get this kind of creative. We need to do X, Y, Z. So always us being proactive with it. So the client always feels like you're working for them. And again, it's like so much of that is communication, because if a client really knew everything that you were working on in the background, they'd be like, damn, these guys are really working hard. But they usually don't, right? They maybe get a notification that a new ad was launched, but they don't know that you're like, oh, we're working on new creative. We're testing this out. We're doing this. Like, they don't know all of that stuff. And it's like, if a client knew everything that was happening in the background, they'd be like, wow, these guys are working really, really hard for me. Because you can keep it. I mean, like, we have clients that have been with us for 4 or 5 years. That doesn't mean like that assumption would be like, oh, this person has, went from 10 members to like 700 or something like that. I'm like, that's not the case. You have people that have had not good months and stuff like that. But they're generally like on an uptrend. But they also, I think because of all that communication, like these clients also know it's like, dude, nobody else is going to work as hard as these guys for me. And maybe some of them have tried other agencies and stuff like that, but they just know because of that, it's like, dude, these guys work really, really hard. Like, who's going to give me like this level of service? And I think one of the best compliments at times could be when somebody leaves and they come back, they're like, oh, the grass isn't greener out there. Like what you guys do is like, you guys are working really hard to figure things out. And then I would say from like a results standpoint is, you know, we definitely work hard on creative. Like we try to take as much of it out of the client's control as possible. So our design team works really hard to come up with like badass images, like for our offers and stuff like that. We try to get our clients to create certain videos for us, but we try to take as much of it as possible off of them. So like, hey, give us all this kind of raw footage. We'll go ahead and edit it. Or, hey, here's a video we want you to shoot. We give them a full description. Like, hey, here's like how to shoot the video. Here's your script. Download this teleprompter app. Like use this, say this on camera. Make sure you're this far away. Like we have everybody that starts with us. They have like we have a huge PDF of like content guidelines showing them example videos, example creative, like all this stuff. We try to give them as much direction as possible. And granted, the thing is, like when you work with franchises, usually you can get better results with them because they have more brand awareness. And they bought a business in a box, right? So they probably have good operations processes to a certain, probably most likely they have better operations than your independent location.
Yeah.
And then, so something we've been doing more of now lately with our clients is setting up really good funnels, because before we would do a lot of like lead forms, and if you run ads with lead forms, that there's usually going to be a quality issue. You're going to get a lot of leads that like ghost you. You'll end up with like 20-30% like schedule rate, and that becomes a big drain on things. So now we've been starting to build out like some really, really, really good funnels for our clients, so that we're not getting, we're getting a higher quality lead, so that I think usually the theory that people have, it's like, well, if you take somebody to a funnel and you get somebody to actually opt in, you're going to get a better lead because there's more friction, which is true. But I think what's also really important is that you really front load your information. Like, so meaning that like your ad should have enough information so that it's like, they say like the purpose of the ad is to sell the click, right? I agree with that too. But you can sell the click so many different ways. You can sell the click with like one sentence of copy and get somebody to click. Or you can sell the click with, 2 paragraphs of copy. And it's like, well, the person that actually reads that copy, and if you have the right kind of creative, that person that's clicking through has so much more information and is likely coming through more qualified. And then making sure that your landing page has more than enough information so that the person that's opting in knows exactly what they're opting in for and why they're opting in. So when I say that is like good headline, so somebody knows like, really good benefit headline with what the offer is. Then some good copy on that page that like reiterates like some of the benefits that you guys have, like small group training and small group training. We have nutrition, like nutrition coaching, like all of these different things. Click below to book your no sweat intro. You book your consultation, right? So they know exactly what they're scheduling for. So they're not a curious lead. And then, they know exactly why they're opting in for a consultation. It's like, hey, you're doing this because you're going to come into the gym and we're going to do a consultation with you where you're not obligated to pay anything. We're going to go over your goals and help you figure out if this is a good fit for you. There's no commitment. It's just a conversation. So somebody now knows you're still going to get some of those leads that'll be like, what's the price? And I'm talking about here if you're doing like a challenge or something like that where you don't tell them the price. So it's like some people will still come through asking for the price, but then most other people are going to know it's like, oh, okay, I'm coming in because this is going to be like a very custom program, and I'm coming in to have a conversation where I can talk about my goals and figure out if this is going to be the right kind of program for me. And then under that, giving them like under that form, like having some good social proof, like have some reviews there, have some pictures of like what the clients look like, what the coaches look like. So now they're like, okay, I'm getting a feeling of what the people are like there. These people look like me. This probably is a good place for me. Or they're like, none of these people look like me. This is not the kind of gym for me. And then even having like, think about like a really good website. A website like for a gym will also have like the schedule, because that's one thing that somebody's probably also thinking about in terms of, signing up for a gym is like, what is the schedule of classes there? So if we have those schedules there, it's like someone can look at that. It's like, none of these times work for me. I'm not going to opt in. Or all of these times actually do work for me. I'm going to go opt in. And one of the other things now that we do is we actually embed what's it called, the Google Maps listing, so they can actually see on a map where the gym is, and it's fully embedded, so they can move around and everything like that. So it's like that person now knows, okay, I know this gym is close to me. I know their classes. I know what the gym looks like. There's good positive reviews. The people there look like me. This is what I'm opting in for, whether it's a low barrier offer, it's a whatever it actually is. So now that person is like very much understands what they're likely opting in for. And then you redirect them to a self-schedule link. And like what we've been seeing recently, it's like we're getting like 50% of people like self-scheduling, which is like,
that's
shit.
huge.
If you get 50% to self-schedule and then you get another 10-15% or something like that from like manual booking, you know, you're getting a really good schedule rate for people.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of time to build out a really badass landing page like that. But damn, like when you have the right offer working well, and that's what people are running through, you can get pretty good results for people that way.
David, I think that's the main point of this conversation. For any agency owner watching, is obsess over product. Those little things like that, really, that's how you get that 95% retention. Then you're not a churn and burner. So you're saying the churn and burn is just a result of agency owners sucking.
I think it's I think it's sucking because they take a simplistic approach to things. Like, yeah, you know, one of the things that we get taught in the agency space is like you want your product to be like very, very scalable, right? And you want your fulfillment to be very, very simple.
Sure.
While it's true, you want it to be very, very duplicatable. But the truth is, I have yet to come across anybody like, I guess it depends on your industry. Like if you're in real estate, it's kind of the same thing over and over again, right? But that's a real estate agent. But if you have a business, you're a gym, you're a med spa, you're a chiropractor, I'm like, all of these businesses are a little bit different. Mm-hmm. You can't necessarily go copy and paste with every single thing, right? Some of it needs to be a little bit unique. Your system needs to be somewhat replicatable and duplicatable, right? Like you're not, and I think when people talk about making your business scalable and replicatable, it means like, dude, don't have one client where you're doing website design, one client where you're doing Facebook ads, one client where you're doing Google ads, one client where you're doing SEO. Like that's where you run into a shit show. That's where it becomes really hard. But yeah, I think that the huge piece here, it comes down to like making sure that you're getting good quality results for people, and then making sure that you have like really, really good communication. Because that's, I mean, if you listen to the feedback from your people on your sales calls, a lot of times like that was the thing, that the concern that they had working with previous agencies. Like, dude, I couldn't get a hold of anybody. They talked to me like once a month or something like that. I had to chase them down, or I had to use a ticketing system where I had to put my situation into, and like people hate that stuff, you know?
Yeah. So who does that for you on your team now? Is that still a little bit of you, or like the quality control, landing page, funnel design? Is that a client success manager?
No, that's usually like the media buying team. Sometimes like lately, like I will dive in from time to time to try to figure out solutions. Like when I just talked about all of that landing page stuff, like that was me really digging in heavy and like hardcore. And like usually what you just need is like a good client to give you their feedback and be willing to like work with you. You know, like figuring out all that landing page stuff is like, we just had one client where the results weren't good and he was pissed off, you know, and we talked to him. He's like, look, man, he's like, I was hoping you guys would be like the last agency, the last call center I would ever have to use. And I'm like, let me figure that out. I'm like, talk me through everything. Talk me what's worked for you before. Because he's like, it worked well when we were doing it ourselves, but we're trying to completely outsource it because we don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Like we don't want to deal with we don't want to deal with the follow-up. Like, yeah, we can call the lead after you guys get them scheduled to like, you know, confirm and all that stuff. And I'm like, give me your script. Give me the exact script that you guys use. And it's also being willing to get in and go do the dirty work. You know, like once I got that script, the first thing I did was I'm like, dude, I'm going to call some of these leads and work on myself and figure out how to make sure this script actually works so that I can give it to my team and coach my team properly and coach whoever's managing the team how to make sure that the team actually does this properly. And, you know, for the call center, I'm in another program called Call Center Mastery. And one thing that I picked up from him that I thought was really cool is like for your call center team, you don't want to give them like a Google Doc for them to work a lead, right? Because then it's like, dude, it's a big freaking mess of information. You're like, okay, here's a script. What if this person says this? I'm like, oh, I have to go scroll down, look through my frequently asked questions and figure out how to answer that. And so one of the things I learned from him was using something like Lucidchart, where you can create like a big flow. So you can create a flow. It's like, dude, this is what you say first. If the person says yes, you go here and say this. The person says no, go here. So they have like a diagram of everything to follow and where to carry the conversation. So it's super easy for them to know what to say. And they're now controlling the conversation, and they know where to go if this person says this or that. And then you have like the frequently asked questions like right in the corner, which kind of like what the frequently asked questions may actually be. But now it makes it easy for them to follow rather than having to dig around through everything like that. So that's been like a really, really like huge help as well. But I think, the key thing there is like, as being the CEO, is just like being willing to go dig in and do some of the dirty work to go figure out like, how do I really fix this problem? And you want to delegate it to some team members, but nobody's going to care as much as you,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. Yeah, that's huge. I noticed like the times where I was lazy and just like didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you lose the clients, So you got to be willing, what you're getting yourself into with this type of business models. Like, well, any business, you got to be obsessed with product, but specifically the agency, you got to be willing to dive in, diagnose. You can't just completely outsource everything to your team and never talk to clients.
Yeah. And you gotta know, and you have to believe. I think the important thing too is that you have to believe that there's a solution, right? Like, because there's been times like where maybe a client's like struggling with results, and maybe you kind of just like let it slide. You think that, it's like, oh, well, that's just like, we tried everything. I'm like, did you really? Did you try everything that you possibly could? Because if you go and figure out, I'm like, if you really go dig in there and think about it, like from a marketer's perspective or from a customer journey, and I'm like, is this the best possible experience for the lead? Because it probably is not, and that's probably what's affecting it. Granted, yes, you're going to have some clients where the market is freaking horrible. That's like, there's sometimes that there's certain things that you can't do. But if you know that, like, if you believe, like, if you maybe know that market, or that this client had told you, like, dude, we used to get good results before. We were getting good results before. You're like, okay, then we are doing something wrong. Take ownership. And it's like, what the hell can I do here to really rethink this whole thing and just do it completely different and get the result, and think through. And that's how we came up with that whole funnel. It's like, what is missing here that is causing us to get crap leads or getting unresponsive leads? Like, what could we do better in this situation? That's like, we're like, let's just redo the whole funnel and give everybody every piece of information that they possibly can. And I think what has helped me with that too is the one area that I'm extremely hands-on with is doing our own ads for our agency, right? And I don't have like a sales manager, so I oversee the sales team. So I look at like, what are the objections that you guys are getting? And when you hear the objections, or you're looking at what kind of prospects are coming in, you go back and look at like, what am I doing wrong with my ads? Or what can I do differently from a messaging standpoint so that people come in more educated, or they come in with better information. What do I need to put on the landing page to make sure that this person understands this piece of information better? Or what do I need to do in the sales process? What do I need to make sure that my setter, what kind of information does the setter make sure they get across this person before they actually get on the call, so that the team member is not dealing with this? One of the things that I've, Robbie Avuvala, what he says is, I think a lot of us think of, it's sales' job to like close a lead, which is true, right? But I think where people make mistakes is that they think that it's all sales. Like, your marketing's job is to get the appointment, sales' job is to close the deal, right? And what he says, he's like, dude, sales is really the last 10%. Like, marketing should be solving a lot of the problems, right? Like, marketing should be doing 90% of the heavy lifting so 100%. That it's easy for sales. And the more you work on your marketing, the better you get over time. It's like, my goal is to try to get every sale to be a laydown. Now, it's going to take time to get there, but that's going to come from working more on your marketing, working more on your content, like every little piece of that journey, so that people come through. Because I was saying before this call, it's like, sometimes you get a call, a person, like, we just recently had a sale come in where a person come in and they signed up both of their locations. Like, it was like a $12,000 PIF. And like, that is just nuts from paid ads for someone to come in. And the thing was that they booked a call originally for us like 5 days out. They rescheduled their call to come in even sooner. And they tried to pay the same day. Their credit card screwed up. They came and paid the next day. So imagine that. Basically, you'd almost call that like a one call close, $12,000 PIF. It's
Yeah,
like
it's huge.
that only happens from like good marketing. And I could see like through the funnel, it's like, dude, this person clicked on the ad, went to our Instagram, clicked on our link in bio, and then booked on our website, not through the ad, right? It's like when a person goes through all that kind of information, it's like it makes it really easy for sales. And that person knew what they were getting into. So it's just constantly working on the marketing side of things to make sure that you are getting the right quality of lead, the person is coming in with the right kind of education. And if they go through that and they realize it's not for them, perfect. Like that's what you want. I don't want the wrong person coming through. So I think it's that experience of also working on the marketing and sales side that like helps you go look at your own, the kind of marketing that you're doing for your clients and making the adjustments. Because I look at some of the other agencies out there, and I think a lot of times we just try to take the easy route. And I think we take the easy route because usually we don't have the full like you're not taking on the full on responsibility of the marketing and the lead gen. If I'm not going to be an old school like gym launch where they used to go do it and close the sales for them too. But
Right.
if you're willing to go do all that, like, I'm going to generate the leads, work the leads, and close the sales, like you're going to learn a shit ton from doing that and realize like how your system needs to be changed so that you can get that result. But I think a lot of agencies have never gone that far, or even at least taking the step of like, let me generate the leads, let me go follow up with the leads and see what that looks like. I think because people don't take those steps, they don't build a really good system. They build the system that gets to one point, which is like, we got you the leads, like, here you go, you got to follow up with them, we'll give you high level, you can go work the leads yourself.
Yeah, man.
And then
taking ownership.
Taking ownership.
Yeah, it's huge, man. I agree with the marketing too. It's like with my agency, spent most of my years just running offer type ad and really was lazy with the marketing and paid the price for it. I mean, yeah, you could still make it work, close 20%, but it's a pain in the ass. It was a quick recipe for burnout where you're just like, people don't even know who you are again. They're like, wait, what do you do? Like, what? And they're all confused. But as soon as I, just implementing a simple VSL, right? Just a simple VSL, like just for tactical piece for your marketing. If you have a simple VSL that lays everything out there, like that'll really grease up the process. But what are some other marketing things that have really helped you with getting clients for your agency to help ads work and all that? And then we can land it.
What are some things for us that have worked really well for getting clients for the agency?
Yeah. Like with specifically like making your marketing stronger, like you're talking about.
One of the things, one of the huge things is obviously working on content. It's a long game, and I've had my stints with content. There was a time period where I was like, time to do content, and I was doing like a reel a day, and I burned out like after like 2 or 3 months. It's like, this is not a sustainable pace. So I think the first step is making sure you take the time to figure out what a sustainable pace was. Like once I got back in, told my director of marketing, like, look, let's start with getting like one good video a week, one reel a week. And then I was like, you know what, let's start doing a podcast. Because if I start doing a podcast, that's like a good 45-minute podcast that we can post on YouTube. We can probably get like 3, 4, 5 reels out of that, find some good clips. So that was a good thing to like help starting to like compound your efforts. And so once you start having that content in multiple places, you can't pay attention to likes and all that kind of stuff. Or you can't even be upset like, oh, I only got 60 views. Like you don't know who's watching, dude. Right? You don't know who's watching your content and consuming some of that information. And then the interesting thing, again, I'm going to credit Robbie Abuvala with this, and I don't even know how much it's actually worked for us yet, but getting away from the idea of a one-way funnel, meaning people, like when I say a one-way funnel is like, dude, you send somebody to your funnel and the goal is usually like, they got 2 options, opt in or just leave the page, go back to Facebook, wherever you came from. And now, because one of the things that, he says, and I think a lot of people say now is like, we're in a trust recession, right?
Yeah.
People don't like, especially when we're probably in a recession or whatever you want to call it right now. It's like people lack trust right now. So you want to give people paths to find trust. So like one of the things we do on our landing page is like under the booking calendar, like we say, it's like, hey, not ready to book yet because you don't know who we are. It's like, here, take these links to go learn more from us. Like one of them takes them to our website. One of them takes them to our YouTube. One of them takes them, I forget, it takes them to somewhere else. It's like, dude, give people other places to go find you, because it's not like your ads are not going to go retarget them, or they're not going to go, like, people are going to go look up other information if they're actually serious about you. Like, give them the opportunity to go find other stuff, because, hey, if you're actually doing YouTube and they go to your YouTube and they go watch one video, guess what? YouTube's going to retarget them with more YouTube content. If they already clicked on your ad, guess what? Your ad's going to retarget them with more content. Like, give them other areas to go find more information for you, because not every single person, you got to realize, like, your ads, like, you're doing cold advertising. Not every single person is going to click on your ad and immediately opt in, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they're going to be curious the first time around, and they're going to probably come down. They'll probably sign up later, like that's just the nature of the beast. Like, not everybody signs up right now, but if they get caught in your web of stuff, it's like, dude, some people are going to be ready down the road. Like, they were interested right now, but they weren't in enough pain right now to actually go do something. But if you're just constantly in front of them, it's like, eventually that person will likely convert,
Totally.
So I think that's a huge thing there, is building a web that people kind of get caught in, putting enough content out there in different areas and making sure that you do a good job of getting people like in front of that kind of information, so that when they are ready, they're going to do it. Because just because you put a good offer and a good ad out there doesn't, even as irresistible as it is, it might be you irresistible offer, make it so good that they can't say no to it. But make it so good that they still might not be ready. And so making sure that they have paths to go down to, like, pay attention to your information, because, again, like, I know most people out there, or myself out there, like, I don't know of many things at all in which I immediately signed up on the first time that I saw it, like, I give the example of Rob Bailey or Sam Ovens. I went through his bootleg stuff. I had to go through. And the funny thing is, I went through his bootleg stuff, but at that time, what you could actually do is you can go on his website and he would give you the first week of the program for free, which is basically what I went through, except through a torrent. Right?
Yeah.
But I got to consume all of his content and build my belief in him. Right. For Rob Bailey, like, I checked out his website. I checked out all of their testimonials. I watched their testimonials to try to understand how they got results, right? So I bought into everything they did because I looked at so much of his stuff that when I finally realized that I could actually sign up for something of his, like, I was bought in. But I wouldn't have done that on the first shot, Most people need to consume a certain amount of information before they're going to go take the next step.
Yeah, 100%, man. Strategic content, more of a web. I kind of see it as like an ecosystem as well, for just having a lot of different short form combinations, long form. So you got the podcast where people can, consume content from you in a way that they like to digest. And when the time's right, I think that you hit it when you're like, don't worry about the engagement, because I feel like that is very discouraging for people. And then they throw in the towel on content and you're like, oh, I don't even know who's, like, it's got like 5 views. So that's huge, man. I'm glad you said that, because I know for me, I've gotten discouraged in the past, and that's kind of one of the reasons where I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, I want the short-term results. And that was, for me, the short-term mindset as well. I just wanted results now, direct response marketing only. Thankfully, I came to my senses, though. I mean, enough pain will do it. Enough pain will cause you to change.
Yeah, enough pain will cause you to change when you realize, like, dude, there's a better way,
Yeah.
And when you also just take the time and sit back and, like, you get used to doing what every guru tells you to do, or whatever path you told you to do. I think a lot of people in the agency space maybe came from somebody like a Joel Kaplan, Agency Lab, where they tell it's like, dude, direct response offers, do a crazy guarantee. You don't need to worry about all this kind of stuff. But even Joel himself, like, switched to going heavy on organic. And I know that's, like, generated a ton of their business. So once you start to realize that and start to think about it yourself, it's like, okay, this is what I've been taught, but what's also actually worked on me? Like, what got me to buy something?
What are they doing? Yeah, what are the gurus doing? Like, see what they're doing, not just saying,
Yeah, what got me? Yeah, I think you should always do that with anything yourself. It's like, when I clicked on an ad, like, why did I click on this ad? Like, what got me to stop scrolling? Did I read the copy? Why did I read all of the copy? Why did I watch all of this video? Why did I opt in? And when you start just, like, reverse engineering what's actually working on you, you're like, oh, there is something here that's different that I'm not paying attention to, because I'm just paying attention to what I'm being taught. And, it's funny, but, like, I remember my buddy Brandon, who sold his agency, and he crushed it. Like he sold his agency for a couple million, and his agency was similar to mine. He was working with like med spas, but he did not. He didn't do like similar in that like he did not do like paid ads, like any kind of client acquisition. And he sold his agency making like 250 grand a month or something like that. And he just got in deep with like 2 franchises, and he said like when he was scaling and he was like in some of Joel's like or the coaching calls and like agency lab himself, they were telling him that because he did things that were unorthodox, right? Like he had CSMs. Every CSM, like they had to do like a 1-hour call with their clients like every single week, and it's like nobody teaches people to go do that. It's like do one-on-ones with your clients like every single week. Everybody was telling him, it's like, dude, you got to change your model. That's not going to work. That's not scalable. And then he said he spoke to Joel one day because Joel wasn't coaching him. It was like somebody else in the agency lab. He's like, dude, keep on doing what you're doing. He's like, I just can't teach people to do what you do, right? Like what you're doing is working, but I can't teach a bunch of agency owners to go do that. I got to tell them set appointments, close appointments, like because what you're doing uniquely works for you, but it's not going to work for everybody else. And it's like he had to go trust his gut with what actually worked for him. So I think the point is there. It's like there's a lot of coaches out there that are going to teach you what works for them or what is a scalable model that they can teach a whole bunch of people. But it does not mean that's the only way.
Intuition over guru. Boom.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it's huge. Trust the gut. I mean, I feel like that's the mistake I made a lot as well. I mean, I don't know if it's a mistake, but it's when you're younger and when you're in a coaching program, you want to follow everything they tell you. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you got to trust your instincts as well.
Yep.
Trust the instincts.
You gotta trust your gut. You gotta trust what's working for you. I mean, understand your numbers. Like, make sure your numbers are actually working. But it's like, dude, if this is working and you see the possibility of being able to continue to do it, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just because somebody else is telling you that they think it's broken, Yeah. Most of us can only teach from the perspective that we already have ourselves.
Right. It's good stuff, man. I appreciate you. I think that's a good place to land. I mean, you dropped a ton of knowledge there.
Yeah. We went a while.
Yeah, recapping. Ultimately, like the biggest thing I took away is that I'm inspired and encouraged is just obsess over product, whether it's whatever your business model is. That's just how can you make it better all the time. Believe there's always a solution to make it better and get them results. And just increase your marketing skills, get better at content. And yeah, I feel like that's anything else, man, you would want to drop, want to add, or is that good?
I think we're probably good there. Yeah, I think we're probably good there. I think my own personal journey or my own lesson in things is that, but I think I've probably gone through some good growth, like personal growth or growth as a leader lately. And that's probably because you have to realize that, dude, a lot of us like in a business, you get into a business because you're like, you get the belief that like, dude, I want to work for myself and have everybody else do the work. So it's like you can chill back, right? But I don't think unless you're running a monster of a company, that's not going to be the case. And still, like even the biggest like CEOs in the world, like they're not sitting behind and doing nothing. Like even Jeff Bezos at his peak, yeah, he's not running the day to day, but his day was based off of like, dude, I have to make a couple good decisions a day. Like that's my job here, is just to make a few really, really good, sharp decisions, because my decisions have massive impact on the company. I don't have to be there working on the fulfillment, the marketing, all that kind of crap. Like I have people that do that kind of stuff, but Bezos wasn't sitting back there doing nothing and just vacationing the whole time. Like that's what was important for him. So I think it's just like always understanding, like, dude, you always have a role in this business and don't sit back. But then also understand there's probably going to be times where, dude, you should be jumping back in. You should be getting, rolling your sleeves up and getting dirty with stuff and going to figure out, how do I improve this? How do I fix this? And being willing, I think the other lesson is that being willing to have the difficult conversations. I think Hormozi said that, like your success in business is kind of directly correlated to your ability to have difficult conversations and how quickly you're willing to have them.
That's huge.
And some of those conversations are with yourself.
Yeah, difficult conversations with yourself. Don't bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Appreciate you, dude.
For sure, man. I think that's a good place. I think we're